دعاء الافتتاح.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي. حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشفي به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون، ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون، ولا يؤدي حقه المجتحدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم، ولا يناله غوص الفطن. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم، وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، صاحب العصر والزمان، خليفة الرحمن، إمام الإنس والجان، ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. The life and lessons of Nabi Sulayman alayhi salatu wasalam has been our ongoing topic. Tonight is lecture number 14 and is the season finale of the story of Nabi Sulayman. For 14 nights, you have very patiently now come with me on this journey as we examine the life of this great prophet. A lot of things were discussed. We go all the way back to how the Quran described him as an awam, his judgment in the court of his father Nabi Dawood, that beautiful discussion with the two sparrows, the male and female, right? Of course, and then the entire story of Hudhud, and the various levels of his interaction with the Queen of Saba, Queen Bilqis. And what I wanted to do tonight, because the story is actually over, let's talk about his death, because the Quran does mention his death in Surah Saba. And then I wanted to basically extract lessons from his life, 3 or 4 of them, as a summary, as a little bit of a parting discussion. Tomorrow night I'm still with you. You're not quite done with me yet. Tomorrow night, inshallah, is the Jashan and the Waladat ba Sa'adat of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. Inshallah, we'll dedicate tomorrow night's speech to our second Imam. So first of all, his death. For those of you who follow along, Surah Saba is the 34th chapter of the Quran. Verse number 14 talks about how Nabi Sulayman leaves this world. I want to share with you after that some words of Amir al-Mu'mineen about Nabi Sulayman in Nahj al-Balagha, and then a few lessons. And true to form, half an hour inshallah, we are done for tonight. So he lived a very long life. Now, numbers that are floating around are, he was over 700 years old, and, these things shouldn't surprise a lot of our youth. When we talk about, Prophet Nuh's life and, Imam Zamana's life and the people of the cave's life and, all these different miracles, keeping the prophets alive this long, of course, is a miracle. But what's important to note is that after having this entire kingdom, conquering this beautiful kingdom of Saba, and I'll get to the people of Yemen after this initial discussion, because there are a couple of beautiful points that I want to make there as well. It's incredible to see how humbling his death was. And again, a beautiful lesson for everyone involved. There's 2 different reports about his death in terms of what he was doing when he left this world. One report that we have is that he was standing, leaning on his cane, watching his kingdom work, basically, what they do every single day. In the state of him standing and leaning on his cane, he could not stand up without the help of his cane. In that state now, God took the soul from his body. But he remained standing. And it wasn't until termites would come and begin to gnaw away at his cane. The cane, of course, gave in and he fell to the ground. And that's how those around him knew that he passed away. That's one version. The second version is that he was standing in the worship of God for a very long time, leaning on his cane. That is Quranic, that's for sure. What he was doing while he was leaning, of course, is not in the Quran, but Alama Majlisi talks about the idea of worship. And in that state, termites came and gnawed away at his cane. He fell down, and then basically that's how he passes away. And I wanted to share with you the actual verse, if it's okay with all of you, very quickly. Again, Surah Saba is the 34th chapter of the Quran, verse number 14. If you can follow along with me, that would be great. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ. So when we decreed death for him, for who? For Nabi Sulayman. مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَةُ الْأَرْضِ. Very, very important. The dalil, the proof of his death did not happen except through what's called Dabatul Ard. The Quran is quite ambiguous in saying a creature from the earth came and proved his death. How? Ta'kulu min sa'ata. Began, of course, to eat away at his staff, at his cane. Okay? This Dabatul Ard, this creature of the earth, Mutawatir, our hadith tell us that they were termites. Okay? And then they talk about the jinn and how they didn't know, and that's a little bit off topic, but I want to show you, Quranically of course, that the death of Nabi Sulayman is mentioned. And, it's incredible how this is a man who conquered the kingdom of Yemen, had this massive kingdom unlike anything that world had seen at that moment. And for him now to pass away through the gnawing of the smallest of insects, being a termite, is a lesson for you and I. Yes, you can succeed in this world. You can create your own respective palace in this. You can be the king and queen of your palace. But everybody has to leave this world. And, the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen are incredible. And again, I'll read them verbatim, if that's okay with all of you, to make sure that, I'm not missing a word or here or there. This is Nahj al-Balagha, khutbah number 182. Okay? He says, if anyone had been able to find a path to everlasting life or to ward off death, it would have been Sulayman, who was given dominion over jinn and humanity, in addition to prophecy and a station of proximity to the divine. What wasn't he given? Control of the creatures of this earth, prophecy, all these blessings, everything was given to Nabi Sulayman. Nonetheless, he says, when he consumed his allotted provisions and completed his appointed term, mortality launched at him. As a result, his palaces lay empty, unused, and inherited by another people. Incredible, right? Like, where are those palaces right now of Nabi Sulayman? They're forgotten. They might be preserved here and there, but after he left this world, someone else moved in, right? Imam Ali says that, in another hadith, that, you are so concerned about this world, but when you leave this world, somebody else will marry your spouse, somebody else will live in your home, somebody else will wear your clothes, somebody else will spend your money. All those things that you were just attached to, you have to begin to slowly detach yourself to it. Not in a depressing way, but in a logical way. Okay? So the death of Nabi Sulayman is a huge lesson for us. Right? Now, in that process, in this entire story of 14 nights now that you've been with me, and by the way, let me say that, the feedback I'm getting, and I've gotten the words of encouragement, the private emails, the DMs, everything, they've been incredible. I mean, such a beautiful, beautiful community out there in Sydney. Professional, sincere, God-fearing, just incredible experience I've had. I pray for your community, inshallah. I pray one day, someday I come and I can break some bread and have a nice cup of tea with you all, inshallah, one day. Lessons from this story. I want to focus on 2 or 3 major lessons, and inshallah we'll close the chapter on this, and then tomorrow night we'll have the jashan, inshallah. Number 1 is that the reoccurring theme of Nabi Sulayman, proving the fact that, look, remember the discussion on awab. فَإِنَّهُ awab. He was the one who would keep returning back to Allah, Right? Awab is one thing. Awab, sigha mubaligha. There is a continuous now returning back to Allah. Now, we talked about this now. It was about, 12, 11 nights ago, that, this returning back to God does not mean that he would sin and return back to God. No, he's a ma'soom prophet, but he would take everything from this world and bring it back to God. Meaning what? Spiritually, would find God in everything that he does. And that's essentially what Tawheed is about. We had the session on Friday night with the youth, and some amazing questions were asked. One of them was that, how do we do that? How do we get our various versions of ourselves into one? And that's essentially what life is about. Life is about bringing everything back onto the one path of God. The harmonization of our various versions, dimension, mass into one is the life that Allah now invites us towards. That's what taqwa is. Taqwa is not just, kind of like 5 times a day in the month of Ramadan, 1 Hajj in a lifetime. It is a lifestyle to live. And Nabi Sulayman said that, and he showed to Allah that, look, I'm not attaching myself to this world. Even until his very last moment with Queen Bilqis, when those presents were offered to him, and I haven't read anywhere what those presents were specifically, but you can imagine now the presents from a queen, from a kingdom the size of Yemen, from a kingdom as beautiful as Yemen's, to be brought to Nabi Sulayman. I mean, anybody would be enticed towards those presents. But right away now he compares her gifts to the ni'mat of Allah, the blessings of Allah, and there's no comparison, of course. So he immediately rejects those presents, and again what? Awab, returns back to Allah. Okay? We also have to find a way to return back to Allah, guys, in everything that we do. Stop and ask yourself, can God be found in this act? The West talks about find joy in everything that you do. Find joy in everything that you do. There's no joy in it, don't do it. Islam says find God in everything that you do. Find God in everything that you do. Nabi Sulayman now, time and time again, proved that, showed that, displayed that to God, and the more he displayed it, the more he threw the dunya at Nabi Sulayman's feet, knowing full well that he would not allow his heart to be corrupted by this dunya. Sometimes people ask me, what is that dua for risk? How can I increase my sustenance? And, while there might be a few verses of the Quran, there might be some recommended du'as, we want to show God that, God, look, if you increase my risk, if you give me a higher salary, a bigger home, a more worry-free life in terms of finances, it won't corrupt me. If we can show him that, then we can expect him to increase our risk. Imam Ali says sometimes the delay in our dua is that Allah knows if I grant my creation the dua they're asking, they'll take that dua and they will actually deviate off my path. We don't know it, but Allah, of course, Allah knows it. The first lesson is, let's be those who completely and absolutely return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that we do. And Allah can be found in a lot of places, guys. Not just the Musalla, not just the nights of Qadr, not just Mecca, Karbala, and Najaf. It can be found, like I said, in your 9 to 5. It can be found in your homework. It can be found in a meal with your family. It can be found on a walk with your spouse. God is everywhere. Point number 1. Point number 2, let's be careful. The one area that I didn't mention in the story because I ran out of time was that in the same surah I just mentioned, where it mentions the death of Nabi Sulayman, Surah Sabah, it's actually named after, Sheba, or that place. Why does it go through details? And I encourage my youth to go through the verses that talks about, the beauty of Yemen, the beauty of that place called Sabah, the beauty of the kingdom of the Queen of Bilqis, to the point now where, I'll give you some examples, okay? And I'll tell you where I'm going with this now. This place, Yemen, was such a beautiful land. Like I said in my lectures, resourceful, coastal, beautiful water, all sorts of greenery. And there's a reason for that. Neighboring cities sometimes would go through floods. The flood will come and attempt to now get into Yemen and destroy the land. What the Yemenis did, because they could, right? They had the resources. They would allow the water to come in. Then they would construct walls around the outskirts of their city, east to west. So now what would happen is that they would have this water trapped inside of their area, and they would leave the flood out. So essentially, they would convert the flood into cultivation. Use that water for everything, from fruits to plants to gardens to resources, to food for animals, you name it. In the process now, it became a very resourceful area of the world, to the point now where some say that if you had a basket on your head and you'd walk under the trees inside Yemen, the fruits would fall so much that your basket will be full within minutes. Free of all pollution was Yemen. Environmental pollution, corrupt individuals, this and that. It was beautiful. The people were beautiful. The area was beautiful. Breathtaking views, the whole nine. And then this massive kingdom given to the Queen of Bilqis and her chiefs. Okay. So what went wrong? What went wrong was in her process of being grateful to God, she actually became a little bit egotistical. They actually believed that we were the chosen ones. That's why everyone else now is dying of a flood. We converted a flood into cultivation. That has an impact on your self-esteem. You get real confident after that. On top of that, they really placed a lot of weight on the sun because the sun would play a substantial role in the flourishing of the resources. So now instead of being grateful to God, she and her kingdom, of course, would bring down the sun to be God. In the process now, that lack of gratitude, that kufran-e-ni'mat as you call it, the abusing of the ni'mat caused, of course, the entire kingdom at the end to fall, and her ultimately now to submit to God. But she had to go through some difficult stations, right? The letter, having her throne now uplifted from her kingdom, brought to someone else's kingdom, right? Being fooled by the glass of water and the fish, all those things. Again, not to fool her, but sometimes when you're so entrenched in your lifestyle, you need a couple of jolts, not just one, a few sparks, right? It's like that smoker who's just trying to light his lighter, and it's like, bro, can you just sit right here, man? Just you guys stand here, and then, yeah. It takes a few sparks. It took a few sparks for her to say, what? Inni zalamtu nafsi. Allah, I have wronged myself. So we have to now adopt the process of being grateful. Gratitude is huge. And let me just kind of, for a moment now, speak a little bit about gratitude. Because remember, with every ounce of the blessings that Allah sent Nabi Sulayman, he never once moved away from being grateful. How are you grateful? How are you grateful? Yeah, you can say, Alhamdulillah. Okay. You know, Shukri lafzi, Shukri amali. There's a gratefulness by the tongue, but what's higher than that is a gratefulness by actions. How do I do that? When you use the blessings of God for what they were meant to be used for, that's the best way to thank Allah. Let me say it to you one more time. When you use the blessings given to you by Allah, when we use the blessings given to us by Allah in a way they were meant to be used for, that's the best way to thank Allah. It's a story I always give. And I'll say it here because it fits. Let's say, for example, I arrive next month of Ramadan, okay? I hop on a plane and Ali Bhai is there, Mr. President, right? He comes and he meets me at the airport, okay? Now I know that he's a big Brooklyn Nets fan. Hashtag shout out to the Nets, okay? So what do? I get him some Brooklyn Nets, merch, as you guys call it. Some paraphernalia, maybe a hoodie, maybe a hat or something for his bike rides. And I give it to him. I give him a shirt, I give him a hat, I give him a hoodie. At the airport, look, I know you love the Nets. Maybe a big KD fan, maybe a big Kyrie fan. Who knows? Here you go. Here's some merchandise for you. He's like, Syed, I didn't even ask for it. I mean, I saw it. I thought of you, Ali Bhai. This and that. We've really gotten closer. I couldn't, Okay. Takes it very, very happy. Couldn't believe it. Drops me off to where I'm staying. The next day he calls me. Syed, after the program at the center, come to my house for iftar. Or come to my house afterwards for a cup of tea. I said, okay, cool, no problem. So a few days later now, right? Program is done in Sydney. We have our tea, right? Some of these young guys now say, you know what, Syed, we'll take you to his house. I go, fine. So we get there a little bit early. They're not quite ready for us. I walk in and they're still cleaning, right? His twins are still cleaning the area, and they're dusting the table. And I look at what's in their hand, and I see what they're using to dust the table is a Brooklyn Nets t-shirt. And I think, Ali Bhai? Yeah. Is that the t-shirt I got you at the airport? That right now, your son is right now using to dust your coffee table? Yeah, you know what, say, turns out, great material, sucks up dust very well, better than any duster we have in the house. So we thought, you know what, hey, why not, right? Oh no, okay, interesting. That's great to know. I'm happy that, you found some use to the shirt that I gave you. And the whole night now, I'm just bubbling and boiling inside. And when you talk without moving your lips, that's how angry I was. Oh, tea, yeah, I have some tea, like that. Next time now I go back to Toronto, I come back to New York, and I see, I don't know, I see something else that he might like. Will I buy it for him? I don't think so. No. Now come to scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 is that Syed will take you to his house. Okay, let's go. We get there, ring the doorbell. Ali Bhai opens the door, bam. Nets hoodie, Nets hat. Syed, check it out. Got my merch on. I went, oh, you look pretty fly, man. For an old guy, you look pretty good. And, it fits him great, looks amazing, right? This and that. We have a grand old time. My lips are moving when I'm talking. I'm not angry. Why am I happy? Because he used the gift for what it was meant to be used for. I felt happy. I felt like he appreciated my gift. God is no different, guys. God gives you a blessing. Eyesight, blessing. To hear is a blessing. To speak is a blessing. Family, a blessing. Your faith, a blessing. All of those things are a blessing. And oh, by the way, with every blessing, he sends an owner's manual, how to use the blessing. Yes, every blessing has its limits. And as we creep out of those limits and begin now to use those same blessings that were meant now to pave the path towards God, we end up using that blessing to pave the path towards Shaitan. The eyes that I should use to look at the ayat and the signs of Allah, I use to watch and look at something else. The ears I use to hear the dua and the dhikr and the beautiful sound of my baby boy crying and laughing, I use those same ears to listen to satanic music. In the process now, I end up making God feel like I felt when I saw that beautiful Brooklyn Nets t-shirt being used to wipe down a coffee table. Now, when God goes shopping for us for blessings, will he think twice about it? Yeah, he will. If we use it for what it was meant to be used for, then we understand, in shakartum la azidannakum, if you are thankful towards me, I will give you more. The people of Yemen were given a substantial amount of blessings. But they showed that by how? By denying him and what? Yasjuduna lishamsi min dunillahi. The Quran says that they would prostrate in front of that sun and not in front of God. And God gave chance after chance after chance after chance. And he says, okay, fine. Let me now give you a harsh reality. We have to adopt a proper form of gratitude. For those of you who are suffering from mental health issues, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, depression, let's say, for example. It's been a very difficult year in this pandemic. One of the ways to escape the madness of your mind and your thoughts and your anxiety is through a gratitude process. Whatever that is. Some like to write, some like to stop and count their blessings. Whatever the case may be, just understand that gratefulness is an outlet for us. We don't want to be amongst those who are ungrateful. Point number 3 is that to me, one of the most beautiful exchanges between Queen Bilqis and Nabi Sulayman was when she went from surrendering to him to surrendering to him. Small h, capital H. Went from saying, fine, I surrender to you, Sulayman, but he never wanted her surrender. He wanted her to surrender to God. Meaning that what? Always understand your purpose. Always have your purpose in mind. Begin with the end in mind. You know, when I was going through uni, there was a book that I loved. It was a self-help book. Back then, when there really wasn't a lot of the Dr. Phil's and a lot of the, you know, chicken noodle soup and all these self-help stuff that we have now. I mean, it's blowing up. But back then, there wasn't a lot. So there was this one book that was everywhere by Stephen Covey, known as The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. In there, he talks about 7 habits of, well, highly effective people. And one of the habits is that you begin with the end in mind. There's no way you can begin a journey without knowing where you're going to end up. How do you hop in a car and back away from your driveway if you have no idea where you're going? How do you hop on a plane if you have no idea where you're going to land? How do you live your life aimlessly? You have no idea where you are. And a lot of it is to always keep that purpose in your mind. God will reroute you, restart you 1,000 times. Right? You pop in your GPS destination, you make a wrong turn, it reroutes you. It'll do that 50 times. Doesn't matter. You can make 50 wrong turns, guys. It will not shut down on you. Provided you don't change the destination address. God's no different. If a lot of you now haven't been the most spiritual, and whatever that means, if a lot of you are perhaps ashamed, riddled with guilt when it comes to God, we have to stop and realize that God is always ready to hear us. There's never a point of no return. If God talks about khatama ala qulubihim, the sealing of the hearts, that's us. We've sealed that heart by ourselves. When we're ready to take off that seal, the keys aren't in our hands, right? Sometimes we think, oh, I'm in prison. Buddy, just kind of lean over, pop the lock, and walk out. That's a self-imposed prison, my brother. No one locked you up. You can get out whenever you want. And when you get out and you call to God, we have every reason to believe that He will answer our call. Ujibu da'wati da'i idha da'an. Whenever you call me. He says, whenever you call me, I'll answer the call of the caller, of the da'i. Whoever calls me. You could be somebody who woke up late in the spiritual game at 25, 30, 45, 55 years old. Lived your whole first 50 years just not caring about God, salat, namaz, family, religion, the center. It was all a fraud. You know, these Maulvis, these scholars, these ulama, these maraji, forget it, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Then at 50 now, something happens, a paradigm shift happens, and boom, 180. Now you think, oh my God, I got to make my way back to God. A lot of guilt, a lot of regret, maybe some shame. Understand, however, that God won't turn His back on you, provided that He becomes the purpose. Keep your end in mind. Know that we do everything to seek the pleasure of God. Nobody here sins out of the enmity of God. I don't think anyone does. Let me show God. No one does that. Yeah, sometimes we're weak. Sometimes shaitan gets the best of us. Sometimes we're jaded, we're angry. Sometimes we go to, this whole my time idea. Well, you know what? That's it. Everyone else is having fun. I'm going to have fun too. And we kind of go through that weird era, and then we kind of turn back, and we turn back, and we turn back. And every time we turn back, who's waiting for us is God. Doesn't hold grudges. He's not like you and I. If a person is in and out of my life after a while, we're like, look, man, either you're in or you're out. If you're out, then stay out. I don't, this game that when you're on, I gotta be on. When you're off, okay, when you ghost me, I ghost you. When you're talkative, I gotta be talk. I can't. I'm tired. I can't do it. But that's how we are with God, right? We end up asking God, begging, oh God, and then He's always there to hear us. Yeah, there's levels to it. But keeping the purpose. Nabi Sulayman never wanted her to come in and surrender to his kingdom. It's all about, forget me, I want you to understand Him. So my sisters and my brothers, in this amazing story of Nabi Sulayman, and what an experience I had in researching, telling you, and I pray Allah that I end up adopting my own words, and maybe all of you as well. So many lessons. Again, not the entire story, bits and pieces here and there, majority in Surah Namal, but nonetheless, lessons for all of us to understand. Return back to Allah. Everything you do has to have the stamp of God on it. Find God in everything that you do. Do not be ungrateful like the people of Saba and Yemen, to the point where now Allah now destroyed that kingdom. And finally, define your purpose. Hold on to your purpose and work to fulfill that purpose. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our efforts. We ask you, Allah, please, we tried very hard to understand the story of your Prophet through your own words and your own kalam inside the Quran. Give us that tawfiq to apply those lessons that we learned, inshallah, forgive our sins, accept our amal, and prepare us for the arrival of our Imam. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.